We started our group with 5, and after a member withdrew, currently stand 4 strong. We are Group 1. Kyle, a Marine currently on deployment in Darwin, Australia. He is a married father of 2 and achieved his bachelor's in political science from Christopher Newport University back in 2009. Phyllis, a senior financial analyst at AARP, living in Annapolis, Maryland, and working in Washington, D.C. She is a single mother of 2 and achieved her undergrad in psychology from Washington University in St. Louis. Alyssa, me, a naval flight officer on sabbatical, living in Stuttgart, Germany. I'm married and achieved my undergrad in TV, film, and new media production from San Diego State University. Ben works in business development and resides in the Shenandoah Valley area. He is a married father of 3 and obtained his bachelor's from the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. We managed, synthesized, and created throughout the globe, and admittingly finding time for synchronous work was challenging over multiple time zones. But we learned we could do it through a lot of hard work and choosing to look on the bright side. The sun never sets on Group 1. We weren't quite sure what the end result would be when we set off in this phase of discovery. What we expected was a basic, streamlined process, and that we would work our ideas in a more conventional way using traditional logic. Typical school, the right answer gets the credit. We thought we would be looking back in the past for ideas that worked or didn't work. Maybe even some well-structured problems with solutions that would be relatively easy to identify with a little work. But that wasn't what we found. The problem we were given was very intimate and personal. The readings and videos involving aging in place invoked empathy and a desire to know more. How could we help? First, we had to set out trying to ask the right questions, which involved knowing more about the problems seniors faced when trying to age in place. Aging in place is a key to many seniors maintaining their independence. The problems that arise as we age can present a significant barrier to people with the desire to age in their own homes. These problems range from declining mobility, mental acuity, socialization, home modifications, healthcare, and of course financial concerns. And many, if not all of them, are intertwined. Awareness stood out to us as a potential need. How might increased awareness of one's health help prolong the ability of a senior to age in place?
We tried to take the instructional material to heart, creating an interview guide that was meant to feel more like a conversation. We wanted to do as much listening as we could to really get the unvarnished inputs of our interviewees. We had a lot of thoughts swirling in our heads about where this might go, so crafted many of our questions to be open-ended. We knew that our interviews wouldn't be perfectly sequential without us guiding the conversation, so instead, we opted to plan for many contingencies and let the conversation flow where it may. The result was some very engaged interviewees. Meet Linda, Mark, Melissa, and Lewis, our 4 interviewees. Even though it wasn't intentional, we found that all of us had chosen to interview someone in their 70s. They all live on the East Coast, and they are all living in their own homes. We broke down our conversational interviews into themes to try to better understand the person we would design for. We dissected what they thought and felt, what they saw, heard, said, and did, all of which contributed to us getting to know their pains and fears, as well as their hopes and their dreams. Through these, we created individual empathy maps, which led into a character profile for each person that highlighted what was most important to them and how they viewed the concept of aging. Let's learn a bit about each.
Meet Linda, the outdoor animal queen. Linda loves to live her life outdoors and loves to enjoy time on her farm with the animals. She is constantly on the go, and if not doing chores, then meeting friends out in town, discovering new restaurants, or traveling the world on a Viking cruise. She fears overdevelopment in her rural area and a life trapped indoors, unable to go, do, or eat what she likes. She hopes to continue traveling the world as long as she can and believes technology may be the answer to that and allowing her to age in her home in the future. Mark, the founder. Mark wakes up early, swims most mornings, and often goes out to breakfast with his wife. He founded a successful local business nearly 40 years ago and continues to work remotely, simply because he wants to. He connects having a job to having a purpose and a connection with life. Mark enjoys playing bridge and loves spending time with his family. He and his wife plan to spend the rest of their lives in their home and are willing to make any modifications necessary to do just that.
Meticulous. Melissa is actively retired. She still works and is very engaged within her community. But at this stage of her life, she is passionate about focusing on the things that she wants to be doing. Always on the go, Melissa leaves very little downtime in her schedule. She very much has a plan for how her aging is going to progress. She recognizes that all choices have consequences, and so she approaches every decision by weighing the likely upsides against potential downsides. Having the full picture and all of the data needed to make these decisions is very important to Melissa.
Lewis is 72, married, and still working. His favorite thing to do at his home is to sit and look at the Chesapeake Bay with a cup of coffee or a bourbon. He enjoys hosting Christmas parties, traveling the world, and sitting in the steam and sauna at the gym. He is fiercely independent and plans to be so until his death. He loves his work and rejects the notion of retirement. He and his friends believe that retirement hastens death.
We painted with the many brushes of what we found to be the most common themes between our interviewees, and by doing so, discovered the canvas of Rick Sanchez, the independent go-getter, our composite character profile. Rick has worked hard to get where he is in life. Now well into his adventuresome retirement, he and his wife desire to enjoy an active lifestyle, both now and into the future. Rick is determined to stay independent. He has started to adapt his life around activities and decisions that will increase that probability. How might Rick maintain awareness of his health to ensure that he can continue living the life he desires? Rick Sanchez in mind, and by synthesizing various point of view statements to ensure that Rick's needs and wants would be clear, we landed on the following that conveyed some key themes shown here. Seniors at various stages of aging need to be aware of and communicate to themselves, friends, and loved ones some concept of an aging plan, which takes into account their cognitive ability, mobility, and ability to maintain independence, because aging and independence are personal definitions, which vary from individual to individual. This would be our guiding light as we went on to the next phase.
We tried to accomplish a lot in our final point of view statement. Maybe it was too much. As we each generated our how might we statements, it was clear that we were independently looking in the same direction for solutions. How might we help seniors, their loved ones, and caregivers assess their current and future needs as they age? This question resonated the most with our group as it seemed to create the most value for our key stakeholders. Upon reflection, it surprised us that so many of our how might we statements already implied a solution. Continually revisiting our final point of view statement helps center our how might we statements and widen the aperture of what might be possible. To better organize ideas, we used Lucid. Though the generation of individual ideas occurred largely independent of each other, there were a few instances where multiple team members were collaborating in real time. The process of iteration through cumulative editing, almost plussing, of our thoughts and ideas is one that this group has employed fairly successfully up to this point. Ideas range from create a test that seniors take periodically to Elon Musk brain chip. Through upvotes, 3 group members whittled the ideas down to 8 and then voted again, landing on 2 final ideas. These ideas led to 3 prototypes: a fall protection system in the home that consisted of a harness suspended from a track similar to the flying cameras the NFL uses for broadcast, a highly customized, personalized aging plan that promotes confidence and independence, a dashboard that could be integrated with data from wearables. The dashboard and accompanying data could be shared with clinicians, caregivers, and family in real time or as an export if Rick chose to do so. Ultimately, we decided on the Smart Rick dashboard. This dashboard prototype is highly customizable in terms of widgets and thresholds. The dashboard consists of data from wearables, such as average heart rate, resting heart rate, blood glucose, exercise minutes, manual inputs, such as blood pressure, medication compliance, and proprietary calculations, such as sleep score and a predicted fall risk. The dashboard refreshes as data becomes available. Based on the data, artificial intelligence makes useful observations, recommendations, and predictions tailored specifically to Rick. AI will continue to learn about Rick over time as more data is compiled and recommendations will incorporate preferences for food and activities. We used Rick-centered questions to guide our prototyping process. How might Rick maintain his independence and freedom for as long as possible? How might Rick monitor his own health for changes? How can changes be communicated to caregivers? What information is most useful and actionable? What is the least intrusive? What would Rick find acceptable and continue to use? Is it user-friendly? The group started formulating ideas for how to introduce the prototype to their interviewees, who would now be our device users. An outline script was made, along with AI-generated and stock images that could convey the prototypes at a more advanced level. We had a possible solution to aging in place, and it was difficult to stay in listen mode and to avoid telling them why we thought it was good or how we came to a particular decision. Our users liked the aggregation of data and the idea of continuous monitoring. Some users did not like the Star Trek feel of the AI-generated models and felt the dashboard was crowded. They hoped wearables were unobtrusive and inexpensive. After talking with our users, we considered using stoplights instead of the gauges and possibly integrating a 1-800 number for questions and assistance.
For implementation, we had a go at how we would apply our idea as a product in the real world. It provided a useful insight for the subsequent iterations of the design process. We used Miro to develop a business model canvas for how our idea would become a product, guided by the video and the courseware. The value propositions and customer segments were the most relevant to design thinking for our group. Let's get to why. The value propositions related directly to our point of view statement and our how might we statement. We want to help assess the needs of seniors as they age and help them to communicate those findings and needs. Through testing, we realized that users want customization and the ability to tie in with medical providers so that they can make informed decisions as part of their plan to age in place. Underlying it all, they desire to feel in control of their own destiny. Thinking through customer segments provided a useful reflection. Aging happens to an individual, but its impacts are felt by many. The takeaway is that we also need to consider the needs of the caregivers, medical professionals, and seniors' loved ones as we develop this product. If we were to continue in our efforts, we would need to go through additional iterations of the design thinking process with these and other likely users of the platform and those who would interact with it. We would certainly need to conduct testing with them and perhaps even iterate further back into the process to conduct interviews, develop new POV statements, and new character profiles. We were surprised by two big things: how our interviewees reacted to the prototype and how using such a simple phrase like "how might we" could have a dramatic impact in our own lives. Some of the seniors we interviewed were willing to embrace new technology, but it was clear they wanted to do it on their own terms, emphasizing ease of use and the desire for customization. It was clear they didn't want to be clumped all together in one age group, which almost begs the question of a new definition for what the term senior really means as generations start living longer. Other surprises included just how much a "how might we" mindset opened doors outside of the scope of this project. Many of us found ourselves able to redirect problems that we faced at work and gain new allies with just that simple phrase that put everyone in the room at ease. A quick correctional pivot for us was our users' desire for simplicity. They liked the ideas and concepts behind the dashboard, but demanded a design that they were familiar with and one that would not require in-depth learning. Some liked the idea of a stoplight, others a numerical readout, but they all agreed a high-tech interface that looked like something pulled out of Star Trek was not for them. This would be only the first in many interview iterations. The more we continued talking with our prospective users, the more refined and defined our idea could become. We'd broaden our audience of interviewees to gain greater insights, yet stay focused on getting feedback from those who would be interacting, either directly or indirectly, with what we were creating. It feels like now, after the first full round of the design thinking process, we actually have better knowledge of what questions to ask from the beginning. At first, it felt a little like we were sitting around the table with Billy Bean, not knowing if we were even asking the right questions. We tried to focus on being as open-ended as we could, but if we were to do this over again, we'd dedicate more time asking each person how they saw themselves aging in their homes. What issues would they identify for themselves now that they might need help with later? We would basically go down the line of questioning of what we would do if we were creating that aging plan for each individual person. We would still want them to tell their story, but we might help frame the conversation by asking them where they thought their story was going and how they would want to write the next few chapters. What would they think would help them navigate them? Our application of the design thinking process improved as we worked our way through the exercises. We had to undo some of our own traditional business thinking, where the goal was to arrive at the correct answer quickly. We found that with the way we framed our questioning, many of the insights we gleaned were pretty predictable. We don't believe that this means that the issue itself has predictable outcomes, but that the way we approached it and phrased our interrogatories and our thinking limited the types of responses we received. It was surprising that even though the design thinking process is well defined, implementing it created many opportunities for fluid conversation, and progression towards our end goal was constant, even if it wasn't linear. Thank you.